Are we recording? Oh, yeah, I just heard the recording in progress sign. So let's get this going. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Township of Georgian Bay Planning Council meeting for Tuesday, March 15th, 2022. And I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:04. I apologize for the slight delay, a couple little technical hiccups. Fortunately, they have been resolved. And in the spirit of reconciliation, we wish to acknowledge the enduring relationship between Indigenous people and the territories they traditionally occupied. We recognize and deeply appreciate the historic connection they have to this place, the land, the water, the sky, and all that live on, above, under, and in it. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all the generations of Indigenous people who have taken care of this place and who continue to care for it. And we want to show our respect. Hundreds of years after the first treaties were signed, they remain relevant today. May they guide our decisions and our actions. We commit to educate, to learn, to honor sacred places, and take action towards real truth and reconciliation. You know, this is a land acknowledgement that I read before most of our meetings, and you've heard it many times before, but I do think that you should at times give it careful thought and what it really means, not just our acknowledgement of the Indigenous people who have been here for many, many, many centuries, but also the respect for the land and how we want to protect the land and all that it gives us as it nourishes us. And with that, I think, you know, given that this is a planning council, I think that's something that should be in the back of our minds as we consider what's in front of us today. Thank you.
Good wish.
Council, any declarations of pecuniary interest, conflicts of interest, or anything else you wish or that we should know at this point? I'm not seeing any hands raised, and then with that, we'll move forward. And I believe the first motion will read something like, moved by Councillor Hazelton, seconded by Councillor Jarvis. Be it resolved, the council adopts the planned agenda of March 15th, 2022 as circulated. Any comments or questions? Councillor Wienko, please.
We at the end, I guess, under other business, do we have other business? Can we have a small discussion on planning recommendations?
On planning recommendations.
And a new business, yeah.
I mean, I don't see why not. Is there anything in particular?
I'll explain it when I get there. It'll be
Sorry?
a short topic.
Okay.
I'll explain it when I get there.
Okay. So that would be as amended. All those in favor of the agenda with the addition proposed by Councilor Wienko. And that is carried. Thank you very much. This morning, there is a public meeting scheduled for one Shore Road closing application. I will briefly summarize the procedures to be utilized for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed Shore Road closing being considered. Next, staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaw and provide for any other information that is relevant to the applications, and staff will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to speak and provide comments to the bylaw being considered. Please be respectful of time and be concise with your comments. All commentators are requested to state their name and address and sign in on the sheet provided. Council will then have an opportunity to provide comments for clarification. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to Municipal Act 2001 C25 as amended to deal with the following proposed Shore Road closing bylaw. R 21-04, 20 Island 130, 6 Mile Lake, or Visser. To our clerk.
Notice of the public meeting was published in a newspaper, and notice was sent to abutting neighbors in the close proximity of the property at least 20 days prior to today's meeting.
Okay, thank you. And I believe, Ms. Levesque, you are presenting this to us. Please go ahead.
Great, thank you. I'm just going to share my screen here. And everyone can see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so the only shore road allowance application this morning is for R2104, and that's for Visser at 20 Island 130 6 Mile Lake. The shore road allowance has been requested by the applicants to allow for future development. The shore road allowance for part 2 and 3 is 1,823.3 square meters at a cost of $8 per square meter for a purchase price of $14,586.40 plus HST. The SRA application was received on April 19th, 2021. The property is zoned 6 Mile Lake Residential, which is SR6. There are no open building permits on file. We have a location map here that identifies the subject lands. As well as an aerial view. And the survey, which I can zoom in to. As you can see, the applicant will be purchasing part 3, which is identified here, and part 2. The applicant, Ryan Visser, is here this morning, so if you have any questions for him or myself. And I'm just going to bring him over to the meeting.
Mr. Visser, welcome to the meeting.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Do you have anything to add to what we've already heard from Ms. Levesque?
No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we're looking to secure the rest of the shore allowance so that we can potentially in the future apply for a building permit to do some renovations. The existing cottage there is leaning heavily according to our contractors, and it's on the shore road. Obviously, it was built 1930, so we'd like to go through all the proper channels and make sure we're getting all things in place long before it falls.
Okay, thank you. Are we aware, Ms. Levesque or Ms. Way, of any members of the public who may want to add a comment? Okay. Well, then we'll turn it over to council. Council, any questions in regard to this application for stopping up and closing a shore road allowance? Councilor Jarvis.
This is sort of related, not related, and I hope you indulge me on this, but this is an island, and we've been over this ground, I know, before. I'm not sure I understand, and Sydney, I hope you can help me here. I thought islands did not have shore road allowances. I know that out in the coastal area, there are few, if any, and it's an accident if they have shore road allowance. I thought it was a mainland animal created by the surveyors and the Ontario government back in the whenever they did the surveying in the 1800s. And I don't understand why we have shore road allowance on an island. Can you help me out on that?
I see Ms. Way raising her hand.
This way.
That's false information. Some of the islands were in fact originally surveyed with shore road allowances.
Were they? Okay, thank you.
And don't ask us to try to explain what people did 150 years ago.
Yeah, no, I don't need that explanation.
Oh, good. I'm glad you have. All right. Councillor Cooper, followed by Councillor Bocek, please.
I'm not going to get into this in great detail, but it's not really false information. It's very clear if you look at the maps for Georgian Bay, coastal Georgian Bay, almost every single island does not have shore road allowance. We do see a few, maybe 50% of them in Go Home Lake and 6 Mile Lake that have shore road allowance. That's the only place. Thank you.
Well, according to the registry in Bracebridge, there is shore road allowance on this particular island. Right or wrong? Councillor Bocek, please.
Yeah, I have no problems with this application, and nice job by the planning department for bringing us a very complete and concise report. Thank you.
Dr. Spilla.
Thank you, Mayor Kuchar. Well, it would be great for the planning department to take credit for this. Short road allowances are within the purview of the township clerks department, and we got to give them all the credit for this one. So I appreciate it, and I'm sure our clerks department also appreciates that. Thank you.
You.
Great job, Karen. Good report.
Sydney, sorry.
Larry, Paul, anybody who take the credit, I'll give it to them.
I think it should land in Ms. Levesque's lap at this time.
Yeah, good, concise report. Thank you.
All right, well, I have in front of me a motion that was moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Be it resolved that council passed a closing bylaw 2022-021 to stop up, close, and convey part of the original shore road allowance in front of Island 52 in 6 Mile Lake, Baxter, designated as Part 2 and 3 on 35R-26724, Township of Georgian Bay, 20 Island 130, 6 Mile Lake, for the purchase price of $14,586.40 plus HST. All those in, Councillor Hazelton. You are muted, sir.
Can you hear me now? So I wanted to pick up on kind of the thread of what councillors Jarvis and Cooper were saying. And I'm not going to argue or debate whether or not an island somewhere had a shore road allowance surveyed. But I think what, if I can project sensitivities, if you will, is there are very, very few islands in our township that were surveyed with shore road allowance. And perhaps what we could consider is that if very few islands were surveyed that way, maybe some people believe it's an anomaly and that we should that should not be there, but we can't fix that. But what we could do is consider a different pricing structure for the shore road allowance on an island.
Right now, we have an application in front of us to approve, and I think you're going off on a separate topic, and I don't think this is the time or place for that.
Well, it would certainly impact the outcome of the financial side of this purchase if we were to say that we would consider a different pricing structure for these rare anomalies of shore road allowances on islands, which don't make any sense. And I'm sure the applicant would welcome a significant reduction in cost if that was something that council would consider.
Ms. Waive.
Unless a cost reduction is being proposed and our fees and charges bylaw is currently being waived by council, I strongly request that we deal with this item, and staff are working on legal opinions and bringing back the shore road allowance policy and making public comment while we're passing a shore road allowance that has been completely vetted by the Land Registry Office and our legal counsel, and making claims that perhaps this isn't a legal shore road for us to sell. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to have that conversation. We do know that we own this shore road. We do know that Mr. Visser needs to own it in order to, apply for building permits and fix the structure he has. So I'm requesting that if we can keep our focus in our conversation specific to this application, and then perhaps this is something that we can address at a future meeting in Planning Council.
And just for the point, for the record, I'm not debating any of the legal issues that you are referring to. All I'm suggesting is that we have a couple of anomalies in our township with shore road allowances and islands, and perhaps we should, as a township, be recognizing this. And it would be very simple for us to come up with a different pricing structure for.
You've already made that point, Councillor Hazelton. I would like to call the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. That, and now we go to another type of public meeting, a Planning Act public meeting. This morning, there's a public meeting scheduled for 2 proposed zoning bylaw amendments. I'll briefly summarize the procedure to be utilized for the meeting. First, the clerk will advise council as to when, how, and to whom notice of the public meeting was circulated for the proposed amendments being considered. The clerk will also advise of the appeal procedure. Next, staff will advise of the purpose and effect of the bylaws and provide any other information that is relevant to the applications, and the clerk will summarize any correspondence on file. From there, the public will have an opportunity to provide comments on the amendments being considered. Please be respectful of time and be concise with your comments. All commentators are requested to state their name and address for the record. After the public discussion, the public meeting will be closed. Council will then have an opportunity to provide comments for clarification. I now declare this meeting to be a public meeting pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act to deal with the following proposed amendments. Z2205 for stairs, Z21-11 for Butler. To our clerk.
Notice of the public meeting was sent by first-class mail to the respective owners and assessed persons within 120 to 800 meters of the property subject to the proposed applications and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the applications. These notices were sent at least 30 days prior to this morning's meeting. Included in each notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed applications and a key map showing the location of the properties or description of the lands to be affected by the proposed amendments. Other relevant information may also have been provided. These circulations were all provided in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act and the Township of Georgian Bay Official Plan. Members of the public are advised at this point that unless they make an oral or written submission to council before council makes a decision on these applications, that any subsequent appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal may be dismissed by the tribunal. Anyone who wishes to be notified of council's decision respecting the proposed zoning bylaw amendments must submit a written request to the planning department.
All right, thank you very much. And then to our planners. I believe we have somebody from J.L. Richards presenting in this particular case. So if they can be allowed to join the meeting.
Dr. Spila, are you aware of Ms. Reed or Ms. Verlu coming today?
Ms. Reed's now on the call.
There she is. Perfect. I love technology.
Yes, good morning. Apologies. My internet has been really slow this morning and cutting in and out. So if there are any issues during the presentation, please let me know. I can repeat myself.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Great. So good morning, Mayor and Council. I will be speaking to application Z2205 for 264 Dogwood Trail. So the applicants are Laura Evangelista and Colin Stairs. Again, the address is 264 Dogwood Trail, which is on Sixth Lake. The applicants have requested to rezone the property from 6 Mile Lake Residential to 6 Mile Lake Residential Exception. This is to permit a new dwelling. There's an existing dwelling on the property which is being removed, and a new dwelling will be constructed in generally the same location. Application is to reduce the front yard setback, northwesterly interior side yard setback, and to permit an increased width of the proposed dwelling. We are recommending approval. Again, it is to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 20 meters to 12.34 meters, to reduce the northwesterly interior side yard setback from 5 meters to 1.72 meters, and to increase the proposed dwelling width from 17.72 meters to 17.92 meters. Here is a location map of the subject lands. And I have an aerial image as well. I just want to note, you can see to the south of the property, there are some other shoreline residential development, sort of to the north and of the property. This is all Crown land. Here is a copy of the survey. So the structures and buildings in the red circles, these have already been removed. So there's a bunkie here that's been removed. I believe this is their pump house, and I'm blanking on what this is, but the structure has been removed. And then these structures in the orange square, these are proposed to be removed, or they will be removed. In the light gray, you can see where the existing dwelling is, and then the darker black box over top, that is where the proposed dwelling will be. I also want to note that they do have their existing garage, which partially goes into the abutting property. We've confirmed with the CBO that it has a building permit, which has been closed. So it's fine to be there. If there's any proposed development or modifications to this structure in the future, at that time, it would have to come into conformity with the bylaw. But just for now, to ease any concerns, it's okay to be there. This was provided by Bone Structured. I think it provides a good overview of some of the features that are on the site. So in red, it shows all of the required setbacks. Again, you can see the dwelling is located within that required 20-meter setback. They also have the septic highlighted here. The gray is steep rocks and boulders, and then the light green, that is forested area. We also have some site photos. So these have been provided by Bone Structure as well as the applicants. Staff did not complete a site visit for this site, but we do have some great images, which I think show really well what's going on the property. So you can see there are some large boulders immediately abutting or immediately behind the existing dwelling. The property itself is fairly steep. They did note that elevation spans a vertical distance of about 15 meters to over 40 meters from the shoreline. The property itself has about 3 steep peaks with 2 valleys in between. Here's another picture which shows this is the existing dwelling, which will be removed, and you can see the steep rock faces behind it. For policy framework overview, so in the PPS, it's considered rural lands. In the district official plan, it is designated waterfront area. There's also deer wintering area stratum 2 overlay on the property, and it has been identified as having moderate to high archaeological potential. In the township official plan, it is designated waterfront, and it is located in the 6 Mile Lake waterfront community, and type 2 fish habitat has been identified along the shoreline of the property, and it is zone 6 Mile Lake residential in the zoning bylaw. We do believe it conforms to the district official plan, as low density residential uses are permitted in the waterfront area. Development is oriented towards the shoreline where it has already been developed. This allows for the rear of the property to remain undeveloped and decreases disturbance of the deer wintering habitat. Should archaeological features be deemed appropriate to be studied during this plan phase, we can request study at that time, and that would be through conversations with the district. And then we do believe that it does conform to the township official plan. Again, residential development is permitted in the waterfront and 6 Mile Lake waterfront community designations. Section D.2.2.4.3 does state that development can occur within the 20-meter setback, provided there is terrain or soil conditions on the property which make it appropriate for development to be towards the shoreline. Section F.5.9.7 states that the max width of 25% of the frontage is what is permitted for the dwelling. So 25% of the frontage of the property is 17.72 meters. Again, they're proposing 17.92 meters. And this is partially due to the degree of insulation that's required for the structure, as they are going for a net zero standard requirements, which requires higher insulation on the building. As mentioned, there is fish habitat type 2, which has been identified along the shoreline of the property, and this does not require further study as per the official plan. So we are recommending approval to reduce the front yard setback from 12.34 meters, to reduce the interior side yard setback to 1.72 meters, and to increase the dwelling width. Again, I just want to note with respect to the interior side yard setback, the property here is Crown land, and there are some very steep rock faces. So we don't anticipate that having a reduced interior side yard setback would impact the abutting neighbor. And with respect to the reduced front yard setback, as we've mentioned, there are some topographical challenges on the property. So by allowing the building to be where it is, we're reusing that already developed land, and we're not further disturbing the rear of the property and that deer wintering area. Also, as you can see, the topography or the front lot area of this property is a V shape towards the property. So we do measure the front yard setback from the closest point. So it's about here to the building is the 12.34 meter setback. If we were measuring from this line shown on the survey, it would be over 26 meters setback from that line. And all other provisions of the zoning bylaw have been met. Also, we did receive comments from the district. They did note that they do not oppose the proposed development, provided that there's appropriate development control techniques used to conserve the valuable conifer thermal cover, deer feeding areas, and movement corridors, and that we implement phosphorus management, so including stormwater management and vegetation retention and or replanting. So those items will be addressed through the site plan control process. We also had 2 public comments which were in support of the proposed development. And sorry, one more thing that I just forgot to note on the survey, it states that this here is the, it identifies the water's edge. We have confirmed with the surveyor that that is the same as the high water mark for this property. That concludes my presentation. If there's any questions, I can answer them at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. You say that the applicant is present today?
Perhaps, Your Worship, while we wait for people to join, I can read the correspondence received.
Yeah, well, while we're bringing people over, I see we already have Mr. Stairs. I'm wondering whether also is there any members of the public that need to be brought over? Mr. Stairs, do you have anything that you wish to add to the presentation made?
I do, just maybe a bit of color, sir.
Please, go ahead.
So we bought this property about 10 years ago and fell in love with it. Love 6 Mile Lake. We've had our kids on this lake, 3 little boys growing up, yelling and screaming, jumping off the jumping rock, seeing all the animals. My dream for this property has always been to build an environmentally friendly house. That's why the insulation comments you're hearing about, that's why we selected it south facing. It's got beautiful solar potential. And as part of that, we've been sort of rehabilitating the property steadily to be more and more in conformance. We knocked down the old bunkie, which was inside that 20 meter and rebuilt it outside. We've moved the septic from non-conforming about 20 meters back to 60 at the back of the property. And we've knocked down a lot of smaller structures, pulled trailers out of the water, pulled tires out of the water. So we're really trying to make this as conformant as we can, and is in keeping with the cottage life as we can. And had a lot of conversations with our neighbors and what we work with for them. And certainly this is sort of where we keep landing, is we sort of have to put the building on top of the same footprint as it was previously. And trying to enlarge the building, but not change the scope of its impact on the environment. So That's what we've been doing. The current structure is in really bad shape. Electrical, plumbing, and just structurally, it was cobbled together over many years and many additions. So just for safety's sake, and also for the aesthetics, replacing it is something that we feel we need to do. So with that, sir, those are my comments.
Ms. Evangelista, is that how it's pronounced? Do you wish to add anything yourself? Okay.
Well, uncovered it. Thank you.
Do we know if we have any members of the public who wish to comment? Ms. Way.
I request I read the correspondence received, Your Worship.
Okay, please go ahead.
2 letters of support were received from Jim Rawlinson and Denise Rennie. 1 letter of no objection was received from the District of Muskoka, provided that appropriate control techniques are to be used. 1, conserve valuable conifer thermal cover, deer feeding areas, and movement corridors. And 2, implement phosphorus management, including stormwater management and vegetation retention and/or replanting.
All right. So have we confirmed there are no members of the public in attendance that wish to speak to this matter? All right, I'm going to go on that assumption for now. I don't see any of the attendees raising their hand or anything. Council, your turn. Who has any questions or comments with regard to this application? We'll start with Councillor Jarvis, please.
Aaron, I appreciate this very complete application. I like being able to read these things through. I do have a couple of comments, and the first one comes in your explanation under the zoning bylaw 2014-75. Your proposed development meets other relevant requirements for the SR6 zone, and then you list lot coverage, and then it says rear yard. I presume that's rear yard setback, correct? Yeah, if you could put the word setback in the future, it'd help me out a bit, because all of a sudden I was panicking that this guy was way over as opposed to well within the guidelines, especially, and also with the interior yard setback. Again, I panicked for a moment, but figured it out. I don't know how I managed that. And finally, in the bone diagram you showed us with the lovely pink colors on it, and then in a prior one, is access to this property via Crown land, or is it direct off on the owner's land?
Thank you, Councillor Jarvis. Through the mayor to Councillor Jarvis. Yes, there is access that's provided through Crown land. That has been existing prior to these applicants purchasing the property. I have spoken to them about it, spoken to the township. That's an existing access. We have not received any comments from the ministry with respect to issues with that access. So as far as we know, it's sort of a legal access to the property over Crown land.
Would there be any kind of, I mean, obviously this has got nothing to do with the application, so I'm not too concerned in that regard, but wouldn't they require some sort of letter from the government indicating that what they've got there is okay? Is that something they should be looking into? I guess is my question. Do we know?
Thank you. I do recall having this conversation, and I am forgetting if they have received a formal letter from the ministry. As I've mentioned, this entrance has been existing prior to them owning the property. By all means, we can reach out and obtain.
I mean, I'll just leave it up to the owner to do. I would worry that all of a sudden they might get cut off for access to their property by the government, but that's neither here nor there. It's not part of the application. So anyway, thanks again. It's a nicely done job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Sorry, did I see your hand, Councillor Cooper? No. Anybody else wish to speak to this matter? I'll just make a quick comment to Councillor Jarvis that I do know from personal experience and experience of neighbors, if there's a lane going over Crown land, sometimes if you really work hard at it, you might get a letter out of it. The ministry saying it's okay, but they tend not to block it. I mean, like there are many trails to go over Crown land, for instance, and they allow that sort of thing. So that shouldn't be an issue. No, I think this is I commend the applicants for the efforts they're making to be environmentally responsible. And I think it's, under the circumstances, rebuilding on the same footprint that had already been disturbed for the prior development makes a lot of sense. And certainly a lot less disturbance to the lot than if they were forced to push this cottage back 10 or 20 meters. With that, I will read the resolution, and Ms. Way, I'll just confirm which bylaw number you'd like me to use for this resolution.
22, please.
22, thank you. This is moved by Councillor Jarvis, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Be it resolved that Council receives Development Services Report 2022-19 and approves the zoning bylaw amendment application Z22-05 by passing bylaw 2022-022, lots of these dashed numbers, being a bylaw to permit the construction of a single detached dwelling with a reduced front yard setback of 12.34 meters, reduced northwesterly interior side yard setback of 1.72 meters, and increasing dwelling width to 17.92 meters. Any further comments? All those in favor? And that is passed. All right, best of luck to our applicants, and we'll move on to the next matter. And have I lost? And that would be bylaw amendment for 1092 East Shore Road. To our planners, please.
Sorry, I was muted there. Good morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Garsimran Seni, and I will be speaking to this application. Please allow me to share my screen. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
So today we're here to discuss the zoning bylaw amendment applications at 2111 for 1092 East Shore Road. The applicants for the zoning bylaw amendment application are Rick and Karen Butler, and their agent is Melissa Markham from Mary Poirier Planning and Associates Limited. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is to facilitate addition to an existing cottage by permitting increase in gross floor area of 225% while 70% is permitted, increase in width of 113% while 60% is permitted, recognize a legal non-conforming setback of 16.71 meters for the existing cottage and 13.74 meters for the existing deck, while the zoning bylaw requires a shoreline setback of 20 meters for the dwelling and 16 meters for the deck. In terms of recommendations, staff are requesting deferral of this application at this time, but I will provide a brief overview of the proposal in the upcoming slides. Here is the location of the subject property. The subject property is located on the shoreline of Gibson Lake. The applicant has submitted an application for purchase of the shore road allowance, but closure of the same is still pending. The area of the subject property is approximately 0.54 hectares, and the frontage is approximately 60 meters along the shoreline, and this would be including the area of the shore road allowance. Here is an aerial view of the subject property. It is currently occupied by a single-story residential dwelling, a sleeping cabin, a shed, and an outhouse. Here are a few site photos submitted by the applicant as a part of the application. Site visit was not conducted for this application at this time, but the photographs provide a decent idea of the views in the proposal. The first photograph shows the location of the proposed lot addition, and the second is the view of the property from Lake Gibson. Here are a couple more photos. Again, the first one shows the view of the property, while the second one shows the extent of the property frontage along the shoreline. Moving on, here's a site plan of the proposed development, which shows the existing and proposed development on the subject property. The applicant is proposing to remove the existing outhouse and shed and construct a new garage in the rear yard. The proposed cottage addition is shown in the second figure. It is located to the east of the existing dwelling and does not further encroach into the front yard of the subject property. And I have a PDF of this plan ready to bring up on the screen if you'd like to zoom in and take a look and take a closer look. In terms of the policy framework, the subject property is considered rural lands in context of the PPS. The subject property is designated waterfront area in the district official plan, and significant wildlife habitat has been identified on and adjacent to the subject property in the form of stratum 2 deer wintering areas. The property is designated waterfront in the township official plan, and type 2 fish habitat have been identified adjacent to the property. Lastly, the property is zoned shoreline residential type 1. At this time, staff are recommending that council receive the associated report. However, pending shore road allowance closure, staff requests deferral of this application at this time. And that is the end of my presentation. Happy to take any questions at this time.
Mr. Mayor, you're muted.
Well, that makes all what I said a minute ago totally pointless, doesn't it? I apologize for that. Ms. Way, would you like to read the correspondence before I turn the screen over to any members of the applicants or any members of the public?
I would, thank you.
Please go ahead.
One letter of no objection was received from the District of Muskoka, provided that the appropriate control techniques are used. 2, 1, conserve valuable conifer thermal cover, deer feeding areas and movement corridors, and 2, implement phosphorus management, including stormwater management and vegetation retention and or replanting. Thank you.
All right. Do we know if the applicants or any members of the public are present who would like to speak to this application?
We have the agent and the applicant.
I also seen our attendees, a certain Paul Wienko. Did we lose him and does he have to be brought over?
There he is. He was calling me.
I'm wondering whether the applicants, I see Rick Butler, whether they wish to speak to this matter, or perhaps they want to hand that responsibility to their agent.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Yes, I am here on behalf of the Butlers. My name is Melissa Markham. I'm not sure if you'd like me to proceed at this point, but yes, I'm here on behalf of the owners.
I'll just want to confirm with the owners that they don't want to add anything themselves. You're making the same mistake I am, that you're still muted.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Yes, hello, my name is Karen Butler. This is my husband, Rick Butler.
And I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments or just leave that to your agent to speak on your behalf.
Well, if I could just take a moment to explain the reason we have decided to apply for a permit to be able to build onto our existing cottage. There's a very huge sentimental value to the existing cottage. My parents bought it in 1986, so it's been over 35 years. Sadly, my dad passed away in 1992, and my mother continued to come up to the cottage with us for a bit, but found it very difficult after that. So Rick and I ended up taking over the cottage, and sharing it with my siblings and having our children come up there as well. You know, it was just the fact that we had a lot of memories there. It's just a difficult thing to think about tearing it down. A lot of people say, oh, just tear it down, you know, but there's that sentimental value. Also, our daughter had triplets and our son had a little girl 3 months later. So we all instantly got 4 grandchildren. So
Congratulations.
thank you. So, and we hope to have another, you know, more grandchildren. Our daughter just got married in September. So we just found that everyone loved coming up and the cottage is just a bit too small. And the other thing is my mother passed away a year ago, December, and we had to sell her house and clear everything out. She'd lived there for 60 years. So it's just been, the thought of tearing down the cottage just is very difficult.
So I'd also like to add that unlike the other fellow that was just speaking, we have maintained the cottage. So we have insulated it. We have put a new roof on it. We've changed all the windows and we've made it very comfortable, the cottage.
New siding.
New siding. And so our actual addition, what we want to do is keep with the character of what we've already started. So we're going to be adding the same, you know, it's going to look exactly the same. It's going to blend all together. And it's going to still have that cottage feel when we're finished. So that's kind of what our hope is today.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll pass it on to Melissa now, who can explain the other parts of the application.
Thank you. Ms. Markham.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I do have a presentation that was forwarded to clerks earlier. So I just wanted to provide an overview of the application. So I'm not sure if I can share my screen or if clerks, okay, perfect. So I will bring that up. So once again, good morning, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Melissa Markham, and I'm a senior planner with Marie Poirier Planning and Associates, Inc. at 44 King William Street, Unit A, Huntsville, Ontario, P1H1G3. So I will share my screen. Oh. Is that working? Is the PowerPoint up? I can't see my screen. Okay.
Well, we have it, how should I put it? We can definitely see your screen, but we also see the area around it, if you know what I mean.
Okay. How's that?
That's probably what you want.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's hard when you have all these screens these days and everything's online. You can't see what anybody else can see. So once again, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here today and letting us make some comments on behalf of the owners of the property. So as you know, I'm here today on behalf of the owners, Rick and Karen Butler, who are also here in attendance, and that you just did hear them provide an overview in terms of what their proposal is. The Butlers have applied to construct an addition onto a modest cottage located on their lands, which have been in the family for the past 36 years. The subject lands are municipally known as 1092 East Shore Road. The property is approximately 5,486 square meters in area and has 60 meters of frontage on Gibson Lake. The current development consists of an existing 700 square foot cottage and 379 square foot deck, 138 square foot bunkie and shed, an outhouse and a dock. As you've heard and in the staff report, the rest of the provisions in the bylaw comply in terms of side yard setback and lot coverage. The owners do not wish to demolish the existing cottage. For sentimental reasons, the owners would like to maintain the existing cottage and only seek to construct an addition onto the structure to accommodate a growing family. The proposed development is not a new dwelling, but rather an addition to an existing cottage that is many decades old. As you can see, there's an irregular shoreline, but the proposal will not be any closer to the shoreline than the existing cottage. The existing septic system was recently updated to accommodate the proposed cottage addition, and the septic's located greater than 30 meters away from the water, which exceeds the minimum requirement. The property is well treed with a mix of conifers and mature trees along the shoreline, which obscure the majority of the cottage from view from the lake. The property is flat with little to no variation in topography, and the height of the proposed structure will not exceed the zoning requirements or impact any views from the lake or otherwise. No shoreline trees will be removed to accommodate the proposed addition. The surrounding properties have similar sized cottages, similar lot coverages, and the proposed development will be in keeping with the character of the area. The proposed development is seeking relief from the required setback. The owners, as you heard them speak earlier, would like to maintain the existing dwelling. However, they are aware that if they were to demolish and reconstruct at 20 meters, planning relief would not be required for this application. As I mentioned, they would like to retain the existing cottage. And the overview here in terms of the plan is exactly what you saw from your planning consultants, which identified the existing cottage, which does encroach onto the shore road allowance. However, the entirety of the proposed addition is located on the owner's lands, not located within the shore road allowance. As you can see by the proposed plans, the existing cottage is 1 story, and the proposed addition will also be 1 story in height. The addition has a slightly higher roof, however, it complies with the bylaw. Here's, as you can see, an aerial photo of the surrounding properties. The area is developed with cottages, and the cottages on either side of the Butler property are set back at a similar setback. These are the subject lands here. This is a similar plan that you saw previously. These are the owner's lands. The adjacent neighbors have similar setbacks to the Butler property. As you can see, the historic development pattern in this area reflects a legal non-complying shoreline yard setback. The proposed development requires relief from the existing legal non-complying situation with respect to the permitted expansion of an existing dwelling with legal non-complying setbacks. There are no sensitive water resources associated with Gibson Lake, and there's type 2 abutting the shoreline. In order to provide a bit more of a background to the subject lands, the owner's family purchased the property in 1986. Once again, they are aware if they demolished the existing dwelling and moved it to a 20-meter setback, it would be permitted. The owners want to retain the existing dwelling for sentimental reasons and environmental reasons to minimize site alteration and tree removal on the property. The owner's current cottage is in character with the surrounding area, as earlier demonstrated through the aerial photo. The owners are maintaining a 1-story height for the new addition. And once again, they're here today to answer any questions with regards to the application. The owners wanted to ensure that they sought planning advice prior to contemplating their build and reached out to planning staff in 2018. They were informed that if they kept their addition on their own property and not on the shore road allowance, they would be able to receive a building permit. The owners proceeded to design their building with this in mind. The entirety of the proposed addition, as demonstrated on the site plan, is contained on the owner's lands. The owner began the process again at the beginning of 2021, and a complete application for the zoning bylaw amendment here before you was submitted to the township in August of 2021. As the shore road allowance is not currently owned by the owners, an application was submitted to the township in January of 2022. The owners are fully prepared to continue this process to stop up and close the shore road allowance. However, this process could take up to a year to complete. The owners were notified in February that their application would be proceeding to today's council meeting. We reviewed the staff report that was posted, and it had recommended at the time approval of the application. Following the posting of the staff report, the township planning consultants emailed myself and the agent informing me that the staff would be recommending deferral until such time as the shore road allowance had been stopped up and closed. As I mentioned, based on advice in 2018, the applicants proceeded with designing their cottage addition to not be located on the shore road allowance. We are aware, the owners are as well, that if the building permit requires closure of the shore road allowance, that there would be a mechanism in place during the building permit process to close the shore road allowance. At this point, it is our opinion that the deferral of the zoning bylaw amendment before you today should not take place based on closure of the shore road allowance, which the owners are willingly moving forward with, as you can see by a complete submission. The planning consultants for the township provided an overview of the zoning and a zoning bylaw and the official plan, so I won't go through this in great detail. Once again, the subject lands are designated waterfront. A full planning justification report was submitted with the application, and staff are in agreement that the application conforms to the official plan. The zoning is shoreline residential type 1. The planning justification report submitted by my firm sets out that the application, other than relief for the shoreline yard setback, complies with the bylaw, and staff are in agreement with the staff report and the proposed bylaw that was attached to the staff recommendation report. As I said, relief requested is to recognize the existing 16.7 meter shoreline yard setback. It recognizes an existing 13.74 meter setback to an existing deck, permit a maximum increase in gross floor area of 225% and an increase in width of 113%. As I mentioned previously, following the posting of the staff report, staff informed myself that they'd be requesting deferral of the application until such time as the shore road allowance had been approved and closed. I forwarded comments to the staff that this application should not be deferred for the following reasons. The proposed development is not located on the shore road allowance. A further review of the township official plan states that road allowances that have no potential public use may be closed in front of privately owned properties. The bylaw also sets out that where a zone boundary follows a shore road allowance that has not been stopped up and closed, the zoning on the abutting lot shall be applied to the portion of the shore road allowance above the current watermark. There is no requirement in either the official plan or zoning bylaw that the shore road allowance is required to be closed prior to the approval of a zoning amendment bylaw. The bylaw even sets out that the zoning would also apply to the shore road allowance of the abutting lot. This contemplates these situations where the shore road allowance is still open. And as I mentioned previously, the owners submitted a complete application to close the shore road allowance in January of 2022. They will be proceeding with this closure. In conclusion, we agree that the staff report and proposed bylaw to approve the application today. We concur with the staff report for the following reasons. The proposed dwelling could be constructed with no relief required at a 20-meter setback. The proposed dwelling will not result in excessive lot coverage for the property. It is within permitted amounts. The legal non-complying setback and deck will be brought into compliance with the bylaw. The proposal will have little to no visual impact or environmental impact on the lands. The proposed addition can be supported by the existing septic system upgraded by way of building permit number 15214, which was closed October 8th of 2015. The proposed addition is in character with the neighboring and nearby properties and is compatible with the existing residential development. And the configuration of the addition reflects modest and appropriate development to an already developed property. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, the owners are also in attendance today and they have provided comments. I'm not sure if they have anything further that they'd like to add.
Okay, thank you very much for a very thorough report. Mr. or Mrs. Butler, anything?
No, that's all.
Okay.
That's all we have to today.
To our clerk, do we have any members of the public who have expressed the wish to speak to this matter?
None that are in attendance, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you. I believe that means it's time to turn it over to council. Council, any comments that you wish to make? Councilor Wienko, please.
Well, we got an email this morning from Williams, is it?
Williams, yes.
Michael Williams. And he indicated that he wanted to speak today. There's nobody in there named Michael Williams?
I see Elena Williams with their hand up. I'm going to move them over.
That would be his wife.
Okay.
Good morning. This is Lena Williams.
Good morning.
I apologize. I have to cover my screen based on where I am. I work in an industry where I'm under non-disclosure agreements, so I apologize for the blank screen.
All right, thank you for the explanation.
My husband, sorry?
I say thank you for the explanation.
Oh, you're welcome. So my husband and I, Michael actually sent an email asking a couple of questions which have been answered based on the information provided today. One recommendation is that this information is provided in advance because then you wouldn't be receiving emails from people like us asking additional questions. So the biggest thing that we have taken away from this meeting is the position that the building proceed without the Shore Road allowance closing.
The building department is not allowed.
Is that the position?
No, the building department is not allowed to issue a building permit until the Shore Road allowance is closed.
Okay. So the deferral, and I apologize for not fully understanding this, is the deferral by the planning department that they've hired, that they be allowed to proceed without the Shore Road allowance closed? Is that what they're requesting?
The recommendation put before us was to defer our decision until such time that a Shore Road allowance is issued, or sorry,
That's
closed.
by the planner, But is the applicant asking for a deferral saying, allow us to proceed without it closing"?
The applicant is asking us to approve this application. However, they still would not be able to build until the Shore Road allowance would be closed.
I see. Okay. Thank you. I just wasn't clarified there. So, and the second question is, even without Shore Road allowance, these property owners appear to be within the 7% lot allowance. Is that correct?
That is what has been
It's just
presented.
and the non-complying part is just because of the fact that where the cottage was originally built, the addition is what makes it non-complying. Is that correct?
The existing cottage is what they call legal non-complying. And so what we would be doing if we approve this would be legalizing the position of the existing cottage. And because it's an addition, we do have regulations limiting the size of an addition, and they want to exceed those limits. However, the end building result would still be within most of our planning guidelines.
I see. Okay. All right. My husband and I actually, I mean, we applaud these people for handling it in the way that they have. It seems like they're working within the footprint that they currently have and trying not to, impose a negative, adversely affect the lake community. So, we have no issue with it. Our issue was that the facts of what they were planning to do didn't seem to be clearly presented. We live on the same road, and the public notice was at the end of a dead end road that's not, maintained by the township. So our neighbors who are across the lake, live in Ottawa, just received their letter like 6 days ago, called us and said, what's going on? And we tried to explain to them based on what information was provided and the sign posted. They seem to be of the same mindset as us, that it wasn't that bad, just that it wasn't clearly outlined for everybody. So, which is why I'm here today on behalf of my husband asking these questions. So do we have any issue with what they're doing? No. The only comment that we would make to Shore Road allowance, and we had this, we heard this through another party, was it's not so much the timeline of it closing, it's what if payment for that doesn't, follow through? You can allow someone to proceed under the pretense that the Shore Road allowance will close. What if they defaulted in payment? That's happened in different situations.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, the Shore Road allowance has to be closed and paid for before the building permit is issued. Ms. Wade, do you want to respond in better detail?
Yes, certainly, Your Worship. Through to Ms. Williams. So when council has received a Shore Road application and they make the approval, the applicant then has up to 12 months to pay for their purchase of that Shore Road allowance. The actual closure and ownership does not occur until payment is received. Similar to if you were buying a house, you don't take ownership of the house until, the bank says your mortgage is approved, kind of thing. So I don't know what other jurisdictions' processes are, but ours, we will not close the Shore Road allowance until full payment has been received.
So thank you for clearing that. To that point, does that mean that without the Shore Road allowance, they are within their lot size allows for the 7% lot coverage under the township bylaws, and their only reason they need the Shore Road allowance is because of where they want to build the deck and the extended renovation?
We require people to purchase, our current regime, we require people to purchase the Shore Road allowance if they want to get a building permit that has anything to do with construction. And in this case, it's an addition to a cottage that is inside the Shore Road allowance. And therefore, they need the Shore Road allowance to get the building permit to build the addition.
All right. Again, we do not take any position against these property owners in building or what they're proposing to build. I do recommend that the township, with regards to their public notice, provide additional information. It's not just my husband and I with this point of view, or speaking with our neighbors from Ottawa. They didn't fully understand They received the notification late. We only received ours the beginning of March via mail. If we weren't physically at the property, we wouldn't have noticed the sign either. So I would just think that the public notice needs a bit amending so that people are, more aware and then not receiving, emails like ours.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your email. We always appreciate the input and the questions. And one of the things we do include in our public notice is that anybody's free to contact the office to get further information. And so, but I definitely appreciate your input.
Oh, I agree. And I'm glad that it's an open door policy. I just think it would expedite matters for yourself. If myself and neighbors didn't have all these questions, we would just, great, proceed with your, building permit application. And I'm sure that the property owners don't want to feel the stress of anybody potentially opposing them based on lack of information.
No, well, we say again, we appreciate your input, and the clerk's department, the planning department have heard it loud and clear this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we know if there are any other members of the public who wish to speak to this matter?
I don't believe so, Your Worship.
So now we'll turn it, Councilor Wienko, did you have any, did we lose count? There, Councilor Wienko, did you have any further comments or do any other councilors want to comment on anything? Okay, I'll go to Councilor Cooper then, please.
Just clarification, really, from planning department and or clerk's department. A couple of things. One is the lot coverage. I'm looking at the numbers proposed or written up here, and it looks like the lot coverage changes with the acquisition of the Shore Road Allowance. It was my impression that whether you bought your Shore Road Allowance or not, your lot coverage was your lot coverage. And so I'm a little bit confused by that. Could I get an explanation on that? I do have a couple of other quick questions.
Okay, I got lots of hands. I'll start with Ms. Way.
I'm hoping we're going to, unless there's certain circumstances, the SRA does not increase the lot coverage size.
But the report says requirement and proposed, and they're two different numbers. So I'm curious what that means.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to
Please.
Councillor Cooper. The requirement or the maximum permitted lot coverage is 7%, and the applicant is proposing a lot coverage of 6.4%. And this assessment was made, including the area for the Shore Road Allowance, under the understanding that the applicant has submitted an application for the closure of Shore Road Allowance. But planning staff was advised by the clerk's office that it's township procedure to not proceed with any Planning Act applications until the Shore Road Allowance was closed. Due to this is one of the factors that that the staff are. This is one of the reasons why staff are recommending deferral at this time.
Okay. I think I understand what's going on here. We've got the requirement is 7%. This is coming in under 7%. So the numbers I'm seeing on the left are just simply the requirements versus I thought there was two sets of measurements here, and I was a bit confused. Excuse me for my confusion. So that is consistent with what we've seen before. And I was going to comment that it's my understanding that our practice is that you have to have Shore Road Allowance, regardless of, you have to own it before you can get a permit, regardless of whether the structures are on or off the Shore Road Allowance. Is that correct?
I saw heads nodding.
Would like to answer that.
Ms. Wade?
It depends. It's not as straightforward. So if the structure being built was 100% on the original property, not including the Shore Road, and they, for example, did not own their Shore Road, as long as the structure is 100% within that original parcel, then they are fine to obtain a building permit because they own the property. If any part or portion is touching, abutting, overlapping on the shore road, then they need to own the shore road as well, because building is unable to issue building permits on structures in which the property owner does not own the land underneath it.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, and I wonder if I can just go to Dr. Spilla for a moment. And I'm just following up on what you said, Councillor Cooper. I understand now that planning is recommending deferral on this. We've heard the request not to defer. Can you give me a little explanation as to standard operating procedures in cases like this?
Thank you, Mayor Kusier. Yes, I'd be delighted to. So we have worked in consultation with our clerk's office because, as has been previously stated, the existing structure is approximately half on the shore road allowance. Our practice has been, when we identify an encroachment on township lands, the shore road allowance, that we would hold off, we would defer the application until such time as the shore road allowance closure is approved and formally closed and transferred into the applicant's name. And at that time, it would come back to planning council for an approval.
In other words, we don't want to legalize something that's legal non-complying when it's affecting property that we don't own. Sorry, that the applicant doesn't own.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's the township's property at this time. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Councilor Yanko.
Yeah, so I'm having some internet problems today, but right now I'm on. So the issue I have, obviously, the size of this development, it's gone from about 65 square meters and going up to 210 square meters, which is a huge increase. And so you have a small lot and a big cottage trying to be put on it, and that's always a concern that I have. We're allowed to build 25% of our frontage on a 25% of our frontage. What percent of frontage is going to be covered by this new cottage?
I'll turn it over to Grisserman for the calculations.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councilor Bianco. I am not sure of the percentage of the frontage that will be developed, but I'd like to note that with the proposed cottage addition, the applicant does conform to all applicable zoning provisions that apply to SR1 zone, with the only exception of the front yard setback that is legal non-conforming at this time.
Okay, well, that doesn't answer my question, but just looking at the diagram itself, it looks like about 50% of the shoreline width will be covered by this building. So I have a problem with that. So I think between the size of the place, well over 200 square meters is a large cottage, and it's only less than half an acre. And again, so this is another concern. So I can't support this application the way it's presented.
Council, any other questions or comments? Because I will say, when I looked at the drawing here, it's showing a width of just shy of 60 meters, and the setbacks from either side add up to 34 meters. So it is a little over 50% of the total width of the lot. So I think that is one comment that I think should be considered. But right now, based on what I'm hearing from planning staff, I think the appropriate thing would be to defer this until the shore road allowance is closed, because that way we won't be legalizing something that is on our property versus the applicant's property, if we were to approve it. Councilor Yanko.
Can I ask if this property was inspected by our planning staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a site visit was not conducted for this property.
That's the concern I have.
Councilor Cooper.
Just other sort of clarifications here. I note that the proposed size of the lot is 5,400 square meters. So isn't that about, it's over an acre, isn't it, in size?
I'm just looking at the property size here. It's about 0.54 hectares, so about an acre.
Yeah.
0.54 hectares.
Right, okay. So just, it's larger than what was being asserted. It is an acre. Mind you, the frontage is worrisome. The increase in size may be worrisome, but I just wanted to get that clarity on the size of the lot. Thank you.
Dr. Spilla.
Thank you, Mayor Kutsier. With respect to the site visit matter, that's a front and foremost issue for the planning department on a go forward basis. In response to the last set of meetings, we are requiring site visits for all applications moving forward. We haven't had time to implement this due to the timelines for report preparations and giving notice for this series of reports. That will change with the next batch of reports that committees and council receive. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor Yanko.
Well, if this is going to be deferred, then you do have the time to do a site visit.
All right, well, I'm going to say that we defer this approval or denial of this application until staff comes back answering responding to some of the comments we've made, and that the Shore Road allowance gets closed. All in, Councilor Cooper?
Just a point of clarification before I vote, and I'm certainly in favor of a deferral, but in terms of our requirement to get applications completed, it is also my understanding we don't have to have a completed application within any particular timeline unless we have all the information, and all of the information would include a site visit if that's our requirement. And I think it's been our requirement in the past. So I really would like to see site visits full stop. So I wanted to encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of deferral? All right, this matter is deferred. Thank you very much for the applicants, and thank you, Ms. Markham, for a very thorough presentation. And I'm hoping that your Shore Road allowance application goes through reasonably quickly.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a number of staff reports to consider, but we're going to break at 11 o'clock to go into close because we have a scheduled guest at that time. So we'll see what we can accomplish in the next, let's call it half hour before we break for closed. And the first staff report in regards to a request to waive fees on zoning bylaw 2014-75. I believe
apologies. I lost control of my mute button temporarily.
Never happened to anybody else. I can.
Karen, can I have control of the screen, please? Thank you. Okay, so what we have before us is a request to waive fees due to a mapping error that was discovered. It dates back to the original preparation of zoning bylaw 2014-75. So the app or Ms. Adams has reached out to the planning department and we've reviewed the matter. And I'm of the opinion that it's not appropriate to charge fees for somebody to correct a mapping error that occurred as a result of the township back in 2014. So what you see before you on the screen, circled in red, is Ms. Adams' property at 335 Corrievale Road. The green hashed or the green slashed lines that you see indicate in our zoning bylaw that the property is zoned crown land. That in fact was an error made back in 2014. As you can see, the surrounding properties, so this area up in the top right of the map, where there's a structure, Shoreline Residential 1, over to the west of 335 Corrievale, we have 2 more properties that are Shoreline Residential 1, and further south on Corrievale Road, we have another property that's Shoreline Residential 1. So it's obvious from administration's perspective that a mapping error has occurred. And historically, based on discussions I've had with the previous CAO and the previous planner for the township, our practice has either been to have the applicant request a zoning bylaw amendment at their own cost to correct the error, which I don't agree with, or to have the matter prepared, corrected, or as part of a housekeeping amendment at a future date. So Ms. Adams has reached out indicating that she wishes to proceed with development sooner rather than later. So she's asked that if she made an application, if council would consider waiving the fee for the zoning bylaw amendment. That's $3,000, and administration supports that and would request council approval to waive the fee. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Should I stop sharing my screen?
Please. Council, any comments on this request to waive the application fee for correcting township mapping error? Councillor Jarvis, followed by Councillor Cooper, please.
If Dr. Aspler could please unshare his screen, that would be helpful. Because I'm still showing his presentation. But I'm in total agreement. I think that we made the mistake. We should be the ones correcting it, not the property owner. So I'm very happy that this has come before us in this manner and happy to vote in favor of it.
Apologies, I'm having technical difficulties.
And of course, as the mayor has stated, we never have those.
No, of course not.
Councillor Cooper.
Chris, you can leave the map up for me.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. Now the map's disappeared.
Okay, but I've got it on my screen over here. So a quick question. Certainly, I think it's very appropriate to correct our own errors. I think that's the right and ethical thing to do. I just wanted to, this is a mainland property, correct? In other words,
Yes.
there's a road, so you'd think it was on mainland, which means it has shore road allowance, although it's not showing here, but it will show when we change the zoning. Is that correct? And does the owner own shore road allowance or not? How can they when it's zoned this way? I find that strange.
We haven't looked into the shore road allowance status. At this point, we were strictly looking at correcting the mapping error, but should an application come forward, we definitely would be looking into that.
Thank you for clarification. I just wanted to comment that would be consistent with everything else around there. And our practice is, or the practice of the province was to put shore road allowance on mainland. So thank you.
Councillor Wojcik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with our planning's department approach on this. I know this family, this has been an ongoing issue, and and it's the right thing to do. We've done this in the past when very rarely we make a mistake, we own up to it and we reimburse the fees. So I vote in support of this.
Thank you. Well, then I'll call the vote in a moment. The only comment I'm going to make is I suspect the reason the shore road allowance isn't shown on this on the survey that is in front of us is because probably they already bought it. That'd be my guess, but who knows? I'm sure the planning department will look into that. But in the meantime, I have moved by Councillor Bocek, seconded by Councillor Wienko. Be it resolved, the council authorized the director of planning to waive all fees associated with a zoning bylaw amendment to be submitted by the owner of 335 Corrievale Road to correct an error that occurred during the preparation of zoning bylaw 2014-75. And that council direct staff to include a policy in a forthcoming amendment to the CAO delegation of authority bylaw, authorizing the director of planning or delegated staff member the authority to decide whether to waive fees for applications to correct administrative errors in any plan or bylaw administered by the planning department. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And of course, the next couple of items that we had on our staff report list, we took care of yesterday. And so therefore we will go to the extension amendment of draft plan of condominium in regards to Edgewater Muskoka Estates or Lone Pine Homes. Dr. Spilla, I believe that is you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Coots here. So once again, we're bringing forward a request for comments from the District of Muskoka, the approval authority for this type of application. And we're seeking that council affirm our recommendations. And in this case, and I am having technical difficulties this morning. There we go. And in this case, I have spoken with the agent for the applicant, and and this is a very recent conversation. That's Mr. Rick Hunter, who's their planner, and we are looking to set the minimum road right of way width to be at least 12 meters, and that's consistent with the District of Muskoka's requirements that the road right of way include a turnaround area for fire and emergency service vehicles in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Building Code. The one item that I discussed with the applicant, and we think we've reached a resolution, is that the stormwater management study be updated to the satisfaction of the township's director of planning and the director of operations. We believe that after further consultation that this doesn't need to be updated at this time based on information provided by the applicant's agent since the report was prepared. So we're recommending that recommendation 3 be removed from this report. Recommendation 4, that the applicant be requested to consult with the fire chief and chief building official about installation of sprinkler systems, and that the applicant receive any required approvals from the Government of Canada related to the mooring or docking of boats along the Trent Severn Way. So there is a lengthy history with this application for plan a condominium. It dates back to 2004. Draft approval was received in 2005. In 2018, full municipal water and sewer services and allocation of capacity was planned for in accordance with the District of Muskoka water and sewer capacity allocation strategy. And prior to connecting to municipal services, an agreement with the district is required. Administration notes this is the 6th request for an extension of draft approval. Previous extensions of draft approval were granted by the approval authority in 2010, 2012, 2014, 2017, and 2020. The reason for the request of the application is to provide additional time to fulfill the conditions of draft approval and extensions related to the internal works and the proposed docking facility. So there's also an amendment as part of this application. They're proposing to increase the number of units to 22, and some of the units have been adjusted in their dimension. They're looking at changing the internal common element roadways to 12 meters, which is consistent with the township's request. They're changing the stormwater management area to be shown as a common element area. Same with the playground and park area. The shoreline and flooded area in front of 4 of the units will be shown as a common element. And boat slips in front of 6 of the units will be exclusive to areas for those adjacent units. The total number of docks has been reduced to 11 as per previous request by the township. There still will be a total of 22 slips, 1 for each unit. Each unit will have a corresponding dock slip and exclusive joint exclusive use dock. The docks will be joint exclusive use areas as noted in their application. So based on our analysis, we are recommending that the draft approval be extended and the amendment be accepted, and that council affirm administration's recommendation or affirm administration's comments on this matter. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to share those, or I'll be happy to discuss those with you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Council, we have an extension, an amendment to a draft plan of condominium. Councillor Hazelton.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. I just have a couple of questions. First of all, I was delighted to see that the environmental impact study that was done back in 2006 was kind of apparently updated for 2020. That's a good thing. I am a little concerned about stormwater management, given developments of this nature. Stormwater seems to be a much bigger issue than on smaller residential properties. And I see that the stormwater was last revised in April of 2005. And I'm not sure that that is what I would call current. And then the other concern I have that relates to the stormwater is the bullet number or item number 3 in the recommendation is that the stormwater management study be updated to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Director of Operations. And yet we have contracted out an an environmental firm, Hutchison Environmental, to weigh in on environmental matters. And I would believe that stormwater management is more of an environmental matter that we would likely want to get a peer review done by that consulting company, as opposed to leaving it in the domain of those on staff who are not environmental experts. Thank you.
Dr. Spilla.
Thank you, Mayor Kusier. To Councillor Hazelton, it is appreciated that the importance of stormwater management, especially on small developments in this area in our core community, and administration reserves the right to request a peer review of the study as part of the application on a go-forward basis. And I think that would be prudent further on down as the project progresses.
But did you not make a comment that you wanted the updating of the stormwater management condition removed?
The update removed, but we could still request a peer review.
Okay. Councilor Rienko.
Just a couple things. Again, this is what the 6th extension. It's a limit on the extensions that we can give a property. It's getting kind of ridiculous that it's 20 years later, we're still giving extensions to this property. And the second question is, when they do go ahead, are there any updated studies required or new studies required based on all updates on a zoning bylaw and so on? I hate to rely on old information when we go ahead on some of these projects. You say the environmental stuff has been updated, the water, the stormwater is going to be updated, but are there any other things that need to be updated prior to this project moving ahead? And how many extensions could this thing have?
From Mayor Kutsier to Councillor Wanko. It is council's, it is in council's purview to determine whether to recommend the extension of this or to approve or affirm administration's recommendation to extend the draft approval for this application. Ultimately, it is the approval authority at the District of Muskoka who have the final say on granting the extension and not the township. We can make recommendation. With respect to the second question, we investigated in consultation with the applicant's agent if there were any changes with respect to the regulations for the stormwater management, and it was confirmed that there haven't been any changes, so that the existing stormwater management plan still is consistent with the regulations as they are written. And did I miss another part of your question, Councillor Ranko? You had a few there.
Well, besides stormwater, are there any other studies that need to be updated if this project goes ahead?
So at this point in the study, we circulated through administration and we flagged any issues. We are not recommending any additional studies at this time. As future applications come forward, the township reserves the right to ask for additional studies.
Ms. Wade.
Just so your worship and members are aware, there's 2 members of the public who have raised their hands. It's not a public meeting, but you do have the right to allow them to speak if council wishes.
Okay, I presume one's the applicant and one's the agent. Councillor Cooper, I'll get your questions and then we'll give them a couple of minutes if they like.
Thank you, Mayor Kutsier. And Chris, thanks for your report. I just curious around a couple of things. You mentioned that the final approval process is the district, but I think the district pays attention to what we say to them. So I think we have a fair bit of influence there, including certain members of our current council that actually sit on the planning committee. I wonder about extensions that's been mentioned. There's been an extension after extension after extension. Would it make any sense to say, this is your last extension, to try and either get on with life or stop it? So that was one question for you. The other one was, it's my understanding when we require a peer review, we can recommend and select who does the peer review, but the cost of the peer review goes to the applicant. Is that correct?
Through Mayor Kutsier to Councillor Cooper, with respect to the peer review, the cost of the peer review is borne by the applicant. And with respect to the first question, I'm not aware in any of my planning history of a draft plan extension not being approved. The option remains within council's purview if they think things have gone on too long. My understanding is that the District of Muskoka their current practice is to provide 2-year extensions to draft plan approvals.
Final follow-up on that, you mean forever?
I don't have a specific answer from the district as to whether they would extend indefinitely. Going back to my previous comment, I'm not aware of a draft approval being terminated after a specific length of time, although that is the option of any council or any approval authority to do so.
Well, thank you for your response. I just maybe you could at some point give us some thoughts on that suggestion that I've made. Thank you.
I'm going to go to Councillor Jarvis, but I wonder, Ms. Way, if you could move the 2 people who have their hands raised over. We'll give them a couple of minutes if they want it. Councillor Jarvis.
Yeah, I'm just doing some follow-up here. I was concerned about the stormwater comments made by Dr. Aspel, and I'm just trying to clarify, can we, within the motion today, make sure that you have the ability in the planning department to require peer review on the stormwater management plan at your discretion, or is that going to be understood anyway?
My understanding is it would be understood anyway. If it's council's desire, they can add it to the recommendation, and you have my support.
Yeah, my only concern is I know that in past we've certainly come under some criticism from other people with regards to other developments and changes in stormwater plans, yada yada yada. So I want to make sure we've got that as part of the program here, and if we had it stated within here, I would really appreciate it. Just because stormwater, as has been stated, is a significant issue when it comes to any development with this significant amount of paving, among other things, and landscaping. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nimji, you wish to add a comment? This is not a public meeting, but if you're brief, then we will allow you a comment or two.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the brief time to speak. I just wanted to add and reassure members that we purchased the property on April 30th, 2021, and have proceeded any obstacles that we have seen to development and to moving the project forward, in terms of completing the EIS study and working diligently with Mr. Rick Hunter at Landscape to get the project approved. So I cannot speak for previous delays or requests for an extension. This would be my first, and I expect it to be my last. I'm looking to diligently move it forward and put my efforts towards that. I will also speak about the stormwater management. It was so the civil engineer, Pinestone Engineering, did supervise the installation of the stormwater management pond and plan in place. The head walls were installed. My understanding is they're working as planned, as designed, and Mr. Joe Voisin from Pinestone Engineering has told me that there is no change in the regulations of the stormwater management procedure from when it was installed until now. So that is where we feel that there will not be a stormwater management update or stormwater plant update required. And I'll cede my discussion to the rest of the group. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Mr. Hunter, do you have anything you wish to add briefly?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, just a couple of quick comments to follow up on what Yassine has mentioned. I can speak to some of the history on the file. Yassine is I believe the third owner since the project had started, and neither of the two previous owners were able to complete the obligations under the approval. So when Yassine did acquire it, he has been working diligently to make sure that all of the conditions are met. That includes getting a reapproval from Parks Canada for the docking facilities that is underway at the present time. Again, we're not able to influence their timeline on that. The stormwater management was approved. There is an ECA for it. It met all requirements from the approvals, which are still in effect, as Joe Voisin has advised. There is obviously a need, and council will have to be satisfied, or your staff will have to be satisfied that the facilities are operating properly, and any sort of, I call it site cleanup, that would need to be done, because there hasn't been a lot of detailed site landscaping around the pond itself that will still need to be done. So that's part of the negotiation on the subdivision or the condominium agreement with the municipality. We've been in discussions with your staff and J.O. Richards for the last number of months on moving forward with finalizing the condominium agreement. So that is something that hopefully will be settled in the next month or so. Similarly, we have a draft agreement with the District of Muskoka for the sewer and water services, which also have been installed, but do require some slight upgrading because of changes in the district's practices and regulations. And that's all been factored into the engineering work that's been done. So I guess those would be the extent of my comments. Oh, I would point out as well that the zoning is in place for the property that was completed a few years ago as well. And the current proposal continues to satisfy all zoning requirements, I think, as your staff have confirmed with us. So we're anxious to move forward on getting everything sorted out. And I believe we're getting closer than we have been up to now. So I would appreciate we support the staff's recommendations and Dr. Espilla's comments on stormwater management as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any final comments, Councilor Jarvis?
I'm gonna harp on stormwater again. I apologize, but I'm just.
Well, you should apologize.
It's just clarification. Under the proposed amendments for the draft plan of condominium, item 3 states the stormwater management area is shown as a common element. Is that a change in status, or is that just what was always in place?
I believe, Your Worship, if I may, I believe that was always the intention, was that those facilities would be common elements. Some of the changes in the approval dealt more with how the docking and the walkways would be dealt with as far as changes plan to the new plan.
Okay, it's just interesting that it's stated as if it were something new to the program here. I'll just leave that with our planning department. Otherwise, I don't have too many issues with this.
Council, any other comments, or should I read the resolution? I have moved by Councilor Cooper, seconded by Councilor Jarvis. Be it resolved that council supports the extension amendment of the draft plan of condominium for Edgewater Muskoka Heights, subject to the following conditions: that the minimum road right-of-way width be at least 12 meters, and that the road right-of-way include a turnaround area for fire and emergency service vehicles in accordance with the provisions of the Ontario Building Code, and that the applicant be requested to consult with the fire chief and chief building official about the installation of sprinkler systems, and that the applicant receive any required approvals from the Government of Canada related to the mooring or docking of boats along the Trent Severn waterway. All those in favor? All right, I'm seeing enough hands. That is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for the input, Mr. Nimji and Mr. Hunter.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Appreciate it. I'm going to propose, Councillor Wienko, that we postpone new business until after closed, and that we take a 9-minute break and then sign it back in for a closed session at 11 o'clock. Ms. Way, is that consistent with what you would like to see?
That sounds perfect. Would you like to read the closed resolution now, though?
That would be a wonderful suggestion. Thank you. That's why we have you here.
Ms. White, Councillor Bochek, before the mayor reads that, could you send me a link to that new email address I gave you this morning, please?
Yes.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Bochek, seconded by Councillor Hazelton. Whereas Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, provides the authority for council of municipalities to close a meeting or parts of a meeting to the public if the subject matter pertains to the matter identified in Section 239(2). And whereas the council of the Township of Georgian Bay deems it necessary to close this portion of the meeting in order to address matters under the following sections of 239(2), 109 Ravine Way, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. Now be it resolved, the Council of Township of Georgian Bay moves into closed session of council at 10:52 a.m. And so we will then stop the streaming here, and please sign in by 11 o'clock for our closed session.